Okay, so we were discussing what were the major classics of season 2. Well, here we are at one of them with Mother's Day. I think this is one of the most overtly science fiction episodes of season 2. It's beautifully apocalyptic. It's tremendously funny, kind of gross. But that being said, it's one I'll always remember watching for the first time. It's phenomenally entertaining. It's tense, and it features the characters hilariously reverting to a very savage, primitive state. Like within hours, like Hermes declaring that they're going to steal fire from the neighbors. The professor believing he's invented the spear, but he didn't even tie it on right. Which I almost think is a joke at the fact that, whenever they draw spears, like there's just like a piece of rock next to a drawing of a wooden pole, and they've gotten the rope drawn like under the spear, and I used to think like, well, how does the rope's under it? Like,
I never thought about that, but that might be a very deep cut joke.
Because they're animators, like they know.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I think of Mother's Day along with some of those other season 2 episodes that I think the only 2 I mentioned were, I was like, head in the polls slightly, and then the lesser 2 evils, put your head on my shoulders. Then Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day. How do you make an episode about Mother's Day so good? I guess it helped that they already had Mom as a character. The episode wrote itself. Like you mentioned Hermes with the fire and the spear and all those jokes. They seem very obvious, but it's just so well done and what would happen.
Yeah.
Especially they've already set up in the show how the reliance on 30th century technology.
Yeah.
I guess as a parody to the times that the show was made,
Of course, yeah.
just makes them so unreliable when that's taken away from them.
Mm.
It's a real 3-2K moment.
Absolutely.
It's very clever like that. It seems like it wrote itself, but it's very clever at the same time. So yeah, it's so good.
It's almost like this is one of the earlier. I might have even said this in an earlier one of these recordings. I don't know why we jumped ahead to Mother's Day. We tend to do that when these episodes you talk about the show in general, because why not?
You compare it to other episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And Mother's Day is one of the earlier episodes, which is about, I guess, the Earth / New York in general, because these stories tend to be contained to Planet Express, but obviously later we get the day the Earth stood stupid, and the one where the Decapodians, the Zoidberg's race invades Earth.
Sure.
Poplars is coming up.
Pile of Garbage was in the first season, though.
That's very true.
It had been done, at least. But this episode definitely, it takes it to a more...
And when aliens attack somewhat as well.
Yeah.
But you know how they really try to... they're very much...
But they condense it into the cast of the show. Yeah, no, you're right. This one expands it more so than those episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's because the Mother's Day, the invasion sort of apocalypse is more overt, whereas when aliens attack, it's more of a threat that doesn't go underway. Garbage, the asteroids incoming. Whereas Mother's Day, it's almost like a prototype for that moment in Beast of a Billion Backs when the tentacles all come.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It is like that.
All the decapodes attacking, the brains attacking. I guess that's why it's like the first invasion, I guess, proper in terms of the visual.
Yeah, and
design.
where you see the ramifications of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we get one a bit later where Bender's a giant in the What If machine.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
a hypothetical, though.
Yeah.
It was all a dream.
Yeah, I think, I believe, purely just as science fiction visual gratification. There's Mother's Day is one of the better offerings of the show in general, and certainly one of the very best of this season.
And a great Bender episode as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bender's classic in that.
Very good episode of the professor, this baffling idea that he ended this relationship over the not Cutie McWhiskers being a weapon, but it being not uncute.
Yeah.
And then he still has a huge problem with it in the future. 16 feet! He's not happy about that.
Yeah, I always found that a bit stupid and illogical, because she later in the episode is like, oh, you love your atomic Superman. So he's inconsistent in that. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, or whether the drama of the show doesn't really matter in the serious sense. So they just sort of play it farcically,
I love it when he leaves his...
Because it's very farcical.
He purchases his foot in the door,
Yeah, yeah. And Zoidberg thinks that's how humans make love, yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
The romantic drama stuff in the episode is very farcical and, over the top and, like you said, gross. And that does actually make this episode very interesting in a weird way.
No, they focus
It's compelling and, like you said, when you see it for the first time, especially as a kid, it feels like quite edgy and...
Well, even in the commentary, they're grossed out when they're watching it. I
Yeah.
I had the DVD of this one in particular.
It's probably a future... Like, I remember being a kid and my mom must have been, like, overheard me watching the episode on, like, television or whatever. And she heard the line, "If copper feel I must," and she was like... What the hell? But I'm a kid. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So it is a very edgy episode like that. It is Futurama sort of pushing certain boundaries.
Just the professor's weird. The focus on his walk of shame across the room and the nude. Like, oh my goodness. But it has one of the very best episodes in the history of this show, or any show, of the giant screaming mind-controlled albino gorillas.
Yeah,
that is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's unsubtle.
But my goodness, no, I believe, one of the apexes of the second season, I kind of wish there were more episodes like this in the season, potentially, or same. I'm very glad that this exists, and yeah, maybe an interesting prototype for some later episodes. To some degree, really good stuff. I don't know if I have that much else to share about the episode. We're not talking about a deeply complicated or philosophically profound episode like some of the ones we may say, as I inferred in an earlier recording, Parasites Lost onward, but really, really compelling.
I don't know, there's one
episode.
tidbit in there. You know, a worker's paradise needs alcohol.
I guess that's an interesting... Yeah, because, well, you know what that's fascinating about that is... It's weird that... Yeah, because there's almost the implications, because what does he say? Like, we're not going to... They're going to use, like, efficient motor oil rather than...
Well, he's essentially
alcohol.
Trying to balance the idea that this, like, workers' robot communist paradise is... Yeah, they're not going to have alcohol because the bourgeoisie use that to keep the robots down when they could run on...
The alcohol's their fuel.
But they could run on efficient, like, mineral oil like Bender does when he converts to robotology. Or they, like... You know, it's been established a few times that the robots can operate on oil, right?
Okay,
but
so
Bender,
the alcohol's almost just like a weird... Yeah.
It's more enjoyable to the robots, I guess. Like, Bender does it because he's cool. But then...
That's the cigars, right?
Well, that too, I guess. And,
I think the first episode is kind of established to... the fuel source thing is established in our roommate more so.
Yeah, that's true.
The first episode.
I guess they retcon it as the show goes on.
Absolutely.
And so by this point, it's not just the iRoommate, like, robots just run on alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I guess the robotology thing's also late season 1.
Yeah, I forgot about the robotology, Hell's Over Robots, yeah.
And so I guess this is one-off line, but it's interesting how they juxtapose, like, the workers' paradise as this, like, aesthetically clean thing or whatever, but then Bender is completely philosophically opposed to that, being Bender, the sort of Dionysian, you know, pleasure-seeking robot.
Yeah.
You know, he can't imagine a utopia that doesn't include alcohol, and he doesn't see it as like it being a function of the bourgeoisie, which it can be. You know, the greeting card is right in a sense with that, but also wrong because Bender's also right.
It's fascinating how Bender there's this great way in which the robots are... It's almost like they're programmed by Mumcore to have, like, abrasive New York-esque human personalities. Like, remember the wax robot?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like they're just programmed to act on impulse, like, because that's easier to control.
Yeah.
And so I guess that the alcohol may have, like, a kind of a subtle effect of making the robots more subservient than they might be otherwise. Is potentially interesting to think about. I mean, it's not unreasonable to assume that the writers may have thought about this, but maybe they didn't take it as fastidiously serious.
No, it's a joke.
It's fun. To think about. It's fun to think about though, just because it's enjoyable to do so.
Yeah. Well, the reason why they didn't take it too seriously is that they retcon these things all the time.
Yeah.
So every bit will just be to suit the episode.
Mm-hmm. Very right.
Rather effectively so, because it's a good one.
Yeah. And we'll be moving on now, I suppose, unless you have anything else to share.
Nah, still.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.